Hello, welcome back. I'm so glad you're able to join me today for a conversation about the power of your mind, the sheer power of your mind. What else? What else would we talk about here but your real power? We're not aware of who and what and where we are when we're running around in our fits of excess activity. And it is truly excess activity. All of the things that we occupy our time with in life that we deem so indispensable to modern life. And yes, it's important to feed the physical body, to pay bills, and things like that. But how often do we really do what you're committing to right now and taking a few minutes out of your day to pay attention to the message of your inner teacher? That is of such huge importance that you may not even realize it. It's huge. So I thank you for that. And if you do realize it, fabulous. Stick around. We always have a lot to cover today because we are talking about the power of our mind. There is one mind, and it can make worlds. Well, let's start with that idea. Here in the text of A Course in Miracles, we're on chapter 10, section 5, which is entitled The Denial of God. And we'll talk a little bit about denial here in the next few minutes. Let's start with the idea that, well, only the eternal can be loved. Only the eternal can be loved. So love doesn't die. It's eternal. God is love, and God is. Period. Love is eternal. It does not die. You are one with your Creator, God, our Creator. There is no death. Who you are cannot die. The physical body comes and goes, and as we saw in the last video, we can mistake ourselves for the perishable, for things that do wither away and die. And we do it all the time because this image on your screen will not look the same in 20 years' time, if it's even still around, which is an if, isn't it? I mean, here in the world, if we live 80 to 90 years, we're considered very fortunate indeed. And it's often a lot less than that. And we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And perhaps you have had a serious illness in your life, or an accident or something where you nearly died. And so you would know, right? This is fleeting, fleeting, not the Son of God either. The Son of God, the thought of God, which leaves not its source, ideas leave not their source, and you are an idea as the thought of God, by which you're known in this course. These thoughts, as do all thoughts, remain in the mind of the thinker. You've never left your source, capital S. Death is impossible. So my hope in stating this idea and restating this idea is that it gives you some sense of comfort It is intended to comfort you. Now, understand that, well, it may freak you out. If this freaks you out and sends you into some sort of an existential tailspin, that is the ego that is reacting. It's the ego that's afraid. Giving up the physical body is not giving up your life. It's not who you are. By the way, I'm not making that idea up. This course states in many places over and over again that we are not a physical body. And here's the really interesting thing. You know this. You do. We all do. Because at some point, we have all heard the voice for God, our inner teacher, the voice of our inner teacher, telling us, whispering to us. Maybe it's more dramatic than that, but at some point you have formulated in your mind the idea that there's more to it than just this. There's more to it than protecting this perishable item, which is a communication device for extending love to the Son of God. That's what it's for. So use it for that. There's more to it than just meeting this thing's needs. There's more to it than feeding it and clothing it and giving it shelter, a roof over its head. There's more to it than just that, than going off to work and enduring all kinds of dramatic BS to get this idea called money to maintain said house and food supply and things like that. Not that that's not important here in the world. It is. However, it's far from your real life. And this spinning ball of chaos and rock is not your real home. You are perfectly at home in God, where you have always been. Ideas leave not their source. Here's another idea that I hope you take to heart and really think about. When you accept yourself as God created you, you will be incapable of suffering. When you accept yourself as God created you, you will be incapable of suffering. In other words, invulnerable. So, what do we have to do to experience this? Well, accept ourselves as God created us. Let truth be just as it is. Our mind is powerful. It's powerful. It's so powerful that it can make worlds, entire worlds. We appear to be sitting on one, spinning through this thing called the solar system, in this thing called the Milky Way galaxy, in this concept that we've invented called space. Mind can make worlds. And here's the thing. It can unmake them. Having made all this up, we can withdraw our faith, allegiance, and belief in it, forgive it, release it to our inner teacher, and watch it all vanish. What's left? God, love, you, just as you were created. We're quite clearly conditioned to see it otherwise, which is why we need this collection of teachings this collection of practices that we refer to as spirituality. There are many different manifestations of world spirituality, clearly, aren't there? This accounts for the multiplicity of traditions that appear in the world, from the traditional religions to other forms of spiritual practice, of which A Course in Miracles is simply one of them. It's one of many doors. So there's something about this particular thought system that has pulled you in. Perhaps the title, A Course in Miracles, perhaps it's a deep inner knowing. Yeah, that's your inner teacher speaking to you. You'll hear something today, if you haven't already, you will, that you're meant to hear. So I invite you to stick around for that message. And then following that, of course, I invite you to listen to that message. And then I invite you to put that message into practice in your daily life, in the midst of checking email, in the midst of taking a nap or going off to work, in the midst of preparing a meal, whatever it is. We learn this thing called spirituality through practical application. That's how you do it. You prove to yourself through your own experience that these teachings are true, powerful. You do it. God does not interfere. Jesus does not interfere. The Holy Spirit does not interfere, which does mean that they're not going to snap their fingers and make us instantly enlightened. I know. Too bad, right? Wouldn't that be beautiful? Just wipe it all away. Yeah. No. Our mind was created free. So we're free to deny everything we're talking about here. And we have, or we wouldn't appear to be this at all, would we? We're free to deny this. You're free to take the messages of A Course in Miracles and reject them categorically. It's totally your choice. Not a problem. It's also your choice to choose to accept them, to think about them, even if at first glance they seem highly fanciful and trouble you. It's the ego that's troubled, always, always. God is untroubled, and heaven simply awaits our waking up, our return, so to speak, though we've never left. We see it here when we see ourselves as individuals as a process. We see spirituality as a progression of events which appear in this artificial structure called linear time, which is nothing. The ideas of space and time are merely separation ideas. We appear separate from our brothers in space. I sit in this thing called North America, where you may sit in this other idea known as Europe or Asia or somewhere else. On this spinning ball of rock, we appear separate from our brother in space. We also appear separate from our brother in time because we've carved this spinning ball of rock into these 24 wedges of 15 degrees longitude apiece called time zones, which are not actually straight 15 degrees, are they? They've been greatly manipulated by world governments. The point where you look at it and think, what is this actually? That's a real good question, isn't it? We appear to be separate from our brother in terms of those of us who have lived prior, who have passed on, and those who are not yet born. There's no separation of any kind. There is only perfect oneness. God is. That's an idea that we need to hear over and over again. So because our mind, because we are free, we've been created free, here where we appear to have a choice between God or the ego, we have a choice to make. we're free to deny what we've created, or we're free to love, embrace, and accept it. The world that we've made is completely unreal. And when you begin to perceive the sheer emptiness of it all, it's very interesting. Perhaps you've had this experience more than once. I know that a number of you come to A Course in Miracles from a devoted and committed lifetime of spiritual practice in other traditions. Or you're just so drawn to this, and you may not actually be able to verbally articulate why you are. It's just some deep inner knowing, an intuitive hit, perhaps. That is your inner teacher speaking to you. All of it is your inner teacher speaking to you. It's the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, who's part of our mind. This mind that is so powerful that it can make worlds. Yet our inner teacher will not interfere with us, nor will our inner teacher force us to wake up. That we do on our own. Yet we have our inner teacher's loving guidance and support at the ready 24/7, but for the asking. And all he needs, incidentally, is a fraction of a second of openness to rush in. So are you willing to give that fraction of a second of openness or more? God has given us the means to completely undo what we've made. Illusion, the illusion of separation, suffering. We've been given the means, our inner teacher. Let's listen to our inner teacher. When we do, we learn. And we're learning to remember what we are, who we are, where we are, what we are. We're learning to remember ourself. Capital S. That's what this course is about, bringing about this complete 180 in our perception, rather than seeing ourselves as 8 billion strong and counting individual self-sustaining survival units known by the collective term human being, which incidentally is a made-up name. All labels are inventions from thin air, aren't they? When we appear to be this, we need spiritual practice. We need a succession of lessons. And we need to hear the voice for our inner teacher, the voice that is part of our mind, that speaks for who we really are, because we're the ones here that are learning. We're learning to see things as they are, to clarify our perception. We see them as they are not. We're learning to see them as they really are, which is one. Not 8 billion, not two, one. So when we have clarified our perception, truth dawns of itself. That's known as enlightenment, awakening, realizing God, liberation. It goes by many names in world spiritual traditions. That's the experience that we're talking about. It's beyond our perception completely. It simply is, and it dawns of itself when we have met its conditions. In other words, learning to see things as they truly are, rather than the way we have orchestrated them and assembled them and made them, which isn't working out for us, is it? mean, we may have a lot of money here at this point in life. You may have good physical health. You may have things going for you in the world, but none of it lasts. What we all really, really deep down want, and it's worth our acknowledging this, is the peace of God. We want the peace of God. It's who we are. You want to go home. Yeah. Say that, do you want to go home, in a manner of speaking, because we're already there. We're simply lifting the veil, so to speak. We're clearing the obstacles to our awareness of this, to the awareness of truth. That's what spiritual practice is, and that's what this course is all about. So I thank you, as always, for tuning in and for joining me. And I'd like to especially thank those of you who have recently subscribed. It's a pleasure to have you here. What you get with these conversations is, well, A Course in Miracles. When something lands for you, it's your inner teacher speaking to you. There are several videos that appear each week, and my intention is to have a safe and vigorous forum for discussion of what's coming up for you in your study and practice of this course and for your spirituality in general. Because if you're new to A Course in Miracles, it is a self-study curriculum. We undertake this curriculum under the guidance of our inner teacher. So I continue to mention that relationship because of its paramount importance. So several videos appear each week, and the subscription arrow is right here. If you have not yet joined us, I'd love to have you. Please go ahead and subscribe and click that arrow or hover over it. You'll be prompted to join us. So please go ahead and do that. Comments and questions are always most welcome here, and I thank you for tuning in. I will see all of you again very soon.